tell the Easter narrative, it ends in silence. 3 women walked toward the grave, and they saw the strangest sight, the empty tomb. Someone had rolled away the stone. They thought that was going to be their job to do that morning. And at first, they can't understand what it is they're seeing. The entrance, it should still be covered with a stone. Then the morning becomes even more bizarre. A young man they've never met sits there at the grave, and he says to them, "Don't be alarmed." Of course, I would be alarmed. Don't be alarmed. You are looking for Jesus the Nazarene who was crucified. He is risen. He's not here. See the place where they laid him. Go, tell his disciples and Peter, he's going ahead of you into Galilee. There you will see him just as he told you. Their response? Of course, like any of us probably, they flee in terror and amazement. And the words are even stronger in the Greek. Tromos, trauma, and ecstasis, ecstasy. They flee in trauma and ecstasy. And as they fled, they said nothing to anyone, for they were afraid. The Gospel of Mark ends in silence, and Jesus never reappears. But it's hard to stay silent, isn't it? Even when we're trying so hard to keep it all in, to keep it all together, to show the world no matter what's going on, I'm still going to show up for work. I'm still going to show up for my volunteer duties. I'm still going to show up and make dinner and clean the house and do the garden and take everyone to school and make sure my hair looks amazing, right? We still do it. But even when we're not speaking aloud, our terror and our amazement, something is going on in our minds, is it not? These minds of ours, which we cannot keep quiet most of the time, we're processing our experience internally. Through their terror and amazement, the women's hearts slowly begin to open again. And through whispers, shouts, and song, the women share the truth as they have come to understand it. Jesus lives. Through the Christian scriptures, we know that one way their truth was heard was this: that Jesus rose early on that first day of the week, and he appeared first to Mary Magdalene, and she couldn't keep the good news to herself. She ran and told the others who had been with him, who had loved him dearly, who continued to mourn and weep. She told them the incredible news: he lives. And their response? No way. They didn't believe her. They shooed her off. They said, "That's ridiculous." Ridiculous. The story continues. Later, Jesus appeared in a different form to 2 of his beloveds, walking together in contemplation. Perhaps they were pondering how to carry forward his message now that he was gone, how to find meaning in life now that he was gone. After he appeared to them, these 2 were filled with joy, and they ran to tell the others. "He lives," they exclaimed. "Ridiculous," said the others. "Stop with your nonsense. Sit down. We are in the ritual of mourning. Come here and be in our group and stop with the silly stories." And in the midst of that gathering of mourners, Jesus finally appeared to all 11 disciples, and he chided them for their lack of faith, for their stubborn refusal to believe Mary and the others who had seen them. That's how one of the stories goes. First, the silence, then the resistance. Silence, resistance. I feel like I know that pattern in my own life, and it's a lot to take in. They heard the news, he lives, when they were in the first days of grief, this heart wrenching, deep in despair, ripping at their clothes, grief. Their friend, teacher, mentor, leader, gone. The movement for liberation that they had been working for, over. The Roman authorities had done their job. Their work was crushed, finished, dead. So much loss. So of course they wouldn't. Of course they couldn't believe in anything in that moment, right? How could they? Absence had erupted in their lives. Absence, a huge, powerful volcano of loss settling at the entrance of an empty tomb. He lives? Ridiculous. They were too busy falling into the mystery of their own grief. John O'Donohue writes about that. When you lose someone you love, your life becomes strange. The ground beneath you becomes fragile. Your thoughts make your eyes unsure, and some dead echo drags your voice down where words have no confidence. Your heart has grown heavy with loss, and though this loss has wounded others too, no one else knows what has been taken from you when the silence of absence happens. When we are in this place, this is all we know. We enter into a full immersion experience of grief, living in the mystery of it, unable to imagine or even hope for a way through. And it feels like this place of mystery calls for us all too often, does it not? Suddenly, right when we have a whole bunch of other things to do, there it comes. We find ourselves on fragile ground. The death of a beloved, our bodies breaking down, our job in jeopardy, the peril of our planet, so much brokenness and despair and domination every which way we look. We cry out, how can we do this? Enough already. And then silence. Life calls us on. Say it with me. Life calls us on. Life calls us on. Life calls us on. Life calls us on.
There was a time when I was in mystery, and I knew life would continue when I met an accidental teacher.
Life calls us on. Life calls us on. Life calls us on even when we think it can't, even when we think it won't. When you are living in mystery, what are the signs, the signals, the symbols that call out to you, that break the silence you hold, the resistance you carry? What are the signs that remind you of who you are and who you love? In Mark's gospel and in the stories that come after, the astonishing news that Jesus lives, it does not come as solitary revelations. There are 3 women at the tomb. There are 2 men walking together in contemplation. 11 disciples gathered in a grieving circle. As some of our own dearly beloved have just shared with us here today, they emerged out of mystery when in relationship with others. Poet Jan Richardson writes, "You hardly imagined standing here. Everything you ever loved suddenly returned to you, looking you in the eye, calling your name." I tell you, this is not a banishment from the garden. This is an invitation, a choice, a threshold, a gate. This is your life calling to you from a place you could have never dreamed. But now that you have glimpsed its edge, you cannot imagine choosing any other way. So let the tears come as anointing, as consecration, and then let them go. Let them go. All you need to remember is how it sounded when you stood in the place of death and heard the living call your name. My friends, if you are sitting in a pew today, you are among people who are ready to sit in the mystery with you. You are with people who are ready to call your name. You are with people who need to hear their own name called with love and devotion. A promise of Easter is this: life calls us on. And let's sing it to and with each other, the words in your insert. Please rise.